plays video games all day, and his wife is fed up.
Hey, what's up? Today we're going to be talking about swapping from console to PC. This video is basically going to be a visualized fact. It's going to have some considerations and tips as far as what you want to think about when you're making the swap, before you make it, after you make it, what to think of while you're in game and stuff like that. So we're going to be moving from basic first-time PC player stuff, like you just got your computer, you just built it, or your mom just bought you your Alienware, it doesn't really matter, to stuff some more experienced players that are already on PC I might like to know about. Just want to check in and get some cool tips. Just a warning, this video is a little more technical than others I've seen, just because I find having a good baseline is very important for playing well. If you're not getting a consistent frame rate or you're getting a lot of tearing or anything like that, that's really going to affect you playing well. So you may as well start at the base before you're critiquing your gameplay and stuff like that. It's just a lot easier that way. So let's just jump right in. We're going to talk about philosophy changes first. So now that you're on PC, you have a lot more control of factors that are at play, which can be good and bad. But the caveat to this is that any problem you have is pretty much stuck being yours. When you're on console, generally, if you have an issue, others are going to be having it. If you're getting freezing on your PlayStation 4, others probably are because they have the same PlayStation 4. It's not like the one PlayStation has a different GPU than another one. And as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that there's the PlayStation Pro, but my point still stands. Versus if you're on PC, everyone has completely different hardware. You could run into some guy having the same FPS drop issues as you as on the Overwatch forums or on Reddit, but you guys might have completely different GPUs, live in a different country, have different CPUs, different monitors, a million different things. So that's a pretty good prelude for the first set of the next set of changes, which will be hardware. This is a big technical part, so please don't fall asleep. I promise you, this is really important. Seriously. So first off is peripherals. Your mouse, your keyboard, your monitors, your desk to an extent. You'll want to find a mouse that feels comfortable in your hand. It has the DPI settings you need, the right amount of side buttons, a good polling rate, all that sort of stuff. Some of that might be confusing to people that are just swapping to PC. I'm sure it is. I'm not going to get into that sort of technical stuff. If you really don't know about that and you want to know, please research it. I know that sounds like a dick thing to say, but look it up. You're going to be doing a lot of that when you're on PC. You're going to run into issues and stuff like that. It's up to you to figure it out. But start now. Start learning about what goes into it before you have the hardware and you're stuck with a mouse that might not work for you or a monitor that doesn't go to as high of a frame rate as you want, something like that. So do your research. Really figure out what kind of mouse you want because, you're going to be holding that thing for how many thousands of hours. To continue, you'll want to find a keyboard that works for you. Not as much that goes into this, but you'll want to figure out membrane versus mechanical. And if you pick mechanical, what kind of switches do you like the best? Go to a Best Buy or to your friend that has a keyboard. Figure out what switches feel the best to you. Do you like cherries? Do you like browns? Do you like greens? I don't know. Monitors, they're very important. In 2020, this is a generalization, so I'm sure some people will not agree, but most mid to high-end CPUs and GPUs should be able to support a consistent, or a 1080p, a consistent 120 FPS. If you don't know what any of that means, please look it up. Seriously, you need to know this stuff. Or you don't need to, but you really should. They should be able to handle 1080 or 120 at 1080. Anything like any of the 1000 series, like 1050 Ti and above, they should be able to handle 120 or at least 75. I don't know. So do your research into what you think what's going to be best. When you're moving from console, you're operating at 30 FPS, which equivalent to 120 is basically PowerPoint level. So this is big stuff. You want to know what you like. If 244 feels a lot better to you than 120, then go for it. But if you can't really tell the difference, don't go for it. And go for a higher resolution monitor if you want to play higher resolution games. I'm dragging this on too long, so I'm going to move away from monitors. But there's a lot that goes into it. One last caveat for monitors is the response time. That can be kind of misleading. A lot of them will say 1 millisecond, 5 millisecond. It's not quite that. There's a good amount more that goes into it than what it says on the box. I'm going to leave a couple links to some Reddit threads that detail what all this response time stuff means and why it doesn't quite mean what you think. So please read through those if you're considering getting a monitor. So that's it for the hardware aspect. I wanted to go a lot further in detail, seriously, but that should probably be a separate video. I came to realize. So I'm gonna stop with that there. If you fell asleep, please wake up. The technical part, no, it's not quite done yet, but the hardware stuff's done. But But, if you have any technical issues, any hardware issues, you have any questions about hardware, leave a comment. I always respond within like a day or so. All right, so next up is going to be settings. I'm in the game now. As you can see, I wanted to show you around. I'm going to be looking over to the right a lot because I had to move my dock. So let's just hop right in. I keep my settings as low as possible so that I can get a consistent 120 FPS. So in here, I'm gonna give you a bigger rundown than I actually expected. So let's just go right down. Display mode, you'll always want to go full screen. Borderless full screen borderless windowed lets you get out a lot faster, but full screen gives you the least amount of input lag. Always recommend that for any competitive game. Next up will be resolution. You'll want to find your monitors. I wouldn't say the max resolution. I wouldn't recommend playing this game at above 1920 by 1080, just because most people watching this, I assume, are playing it competitively. You don't really need to see high-res textures. So I'd say 1920 by 1080 and then 120. I think that number there is the max FPS that you can even set the game to. That's what that means, because there is a separate FPS setting. FOV, you want to set to the highest. I don't think this is an option on console. It's pretty much your angle that you're looking at the game. When it's lower, your cone of view is significantly smaller. Just put it to the max is really all you need to think about. All right, next is going to be VSync. I keep it off because it adds a little bit of input lag. What it does is it syncs your GPU and the game up to your monitor so that you don't get any frame tearing. But this gives a significant amount of input lag for me, so I keep it turned off, but personal preference. Next is the reduced buffering stat. I always see the streamers turn this on then off. I think it's a caching issue the game has. I've never messed with it, but I'm sure they have a better reasoning than what I just said for doing it, so if it helps, do it. Next is display performance stats. The only ones I keep on are frame rate, so that if you're dropping frames or not. This could be helpful so that you're not going crazy. And that the game's you'll know the game's running poorly, not that you're insane. The other one I keep on is network latency. You can know if you're having ping. You can generally feel it if it feels like your shots aren't really registering, but this just helps you put a little bit of method to the madness. Next up is limit FPS. I keep it on display based. It limits it. I have my monitor set at 120 frames. It can do 144, but it starts to tear anything above that. I'll talk about that in a second. But you can make it custom and set an exact amount. I think the game, when you put it to display base, it keeps it 10 frames above your monitor. You don't need this information. I'm just babbling. Render scale, you'll want to keep kind of low. I can't keep it any lower because the game looks too blurry for me to play, but the lower you keep it, the less strain it is on the game. So if you're dropping frames, you could put that down a bit. I also keep all the other settings pretty much as low as they can go. I don't really care about it. As long as I can see the enemies, that's fine with me. And then the rest are going to be gamma brightness and contrast. That'll just be based on your monitor. So that's pretty much it for the video. All right, next up is controls. Sensitivity is independent from DPI, so those are your two settings you have going into the mouse. Your DPI is the dots per inch. It's when you move the mouse an inch, that's how many dots it registers on the screen, pretty much. I don't know the exact conversion. It might be very basic. It could be a lot going into it. I don't know. I keep mine. I recently brought it up from, I think, 3 to about 6. I think mine's about, if I move my mouse the whole way across the pad, I can do a 360. That's what feels comfortable for me. I'm gonna leave a link to the program that really helped me find a really good sensitivity. I really recommend using it. Next up will be your reticle. This is all personal preference. Up until a little while ago, I was using Harb's reticle, which is a circle, but I actually started using a really thin green one. One thing you'll want to keep in mind with the reticle is when you're aiming, do not aim at the enemy through the reticle, just aim at the enemy, if that makes sense. Don't put the reticle on people, put your aim on people. I hope that makes sense. Finally, one last little caveat that I wanted to show you guys with Zenyatta. He's the only character, Moira used to have something like this, but hers no longer applies. With Zen, what you want to do is bind ability 1 and 2 to the mouse wheel, mouse up and then mouse down. With Discord and Harmony Orb, it allows you to pretty much have no cooldown on it versus if you have it bound to E and Q or whatever it is, you have like a half a second cooldown where you can't put it on someone else, like with Lucio's where he swaps between healing and speed. With this, you can just put it as fast as you can flick the mouse wheel. So that's the only control I'd highly recommend changing. Everything else is personal preference. All right, I'm sorry for how technical this has been. We are officially off the technical stuff, onto gameplay. To start, the overall skill floor is skill floor on skill floor is the overall, it's like the bottom, the very baseline. Moira's skill floor is much lower than Anna's because she's much easier to pick up. Just so you know what that means. If you don't. The skill floor on PC is a lot higher, I'd say. just because people are generally more dedicated to the game. This is where all the every competitive game is. So it's just a little bit more difficult. This is a very general equation. So if it makes people upset, don't take this as fact. This is just my opinion. I would compare Masters on console to maybe low Diamond or possibly super high Plat on PC, just because of the general player gameplay knowledge, their game sense, how they have to play, and their overall aim without aim assist. So don't be afraid or don't be discouraged if you get placed lower than you did on console. That's going to happen. I was in Diamond when I was on console, and when I first placed on PC, I got put in Gold. So you'll climb. It takes a lot of getting used to. And coming from that, swapping from controller to mouse and keyboard, very, very different. It's very difficult. It's going to feel completely different. There's no aim assist anymore. I don't know if you knew about that, but aim assist is when it like kind of the enemies or teammates, depending on if you're on a hill or not, your cursor is kind of magnetized to them. That's no longer happening, so it's going to take some getting used to. But once you get better with mouse and keyboard, you'll be significantly more precise and realize you don't need aim assist anymore. All right, and pretty much finally, your game sense will need a readjustment. I really noticed this coming back to console from PC. Characters like Lucio, Tracer, Mercy, they can be really, really, really aggressive on console and not be punished for it, just because of the general lower player skill and the difficulty hitting those smaller targets with a controller. On PC, it's going to be a very rude awakening for you if you play any of those heroes, or even if you don't. You're going to get punished on PC. Fire Mercy is no longer an easy ticket to climb with. People can hit you. They can very easily, you can get killed by Widow. McCree, Soldier, hit scan is just a lot stronger on PC and a lot easier to use. So you're going to have to get smarter. All right, and finally, this is the actual finally. The game is a lot faster and flickier. This kind of ties into my last thing. This is going to sound a bit like ad nauseum, but you're going to get used to it. You seriously will. I say overall, a good move. It's much more competitive on PC. This is where everyone's at. It's good that you're swapping. It's really good. And if you're swapping, if you want to swap back, go in between, that's fine. I do that. I play on console with my buddies. That's fine too. But once you go to PC, I would commit to it for a bit just so you can get used to mouse and keyboard. Don't connect a controller to a PC. Please don't do that. Don't do that. All right, I know this was a lot of info to digest. I'm sure you have a bunch of questions. I'm sure this was a very boring video. But if you have any questions, be it gameplay or technical, please comment here, DM me, whatever. I'm always happy to answer. If you have any VODs you want reviewed from your swap to PC, do them over. I love reviewing VODs. Other than that, thank you for watching.